Before the Reign of Terror, Maximilien Robespierre was born into the middle class, and he was greatly inspired by Enlightenment thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was a humble person but gradually grew power-hungry as the revolution and as his positions of power increased. First, he was an advocate in 1781, in which later he was elected to the States General in 1789. He was an influential speaker, which is where he gained his support. Robespierre was known to be close with the left-wing political group called the Jacobins. He demanded attention from his followers, and he opposed the views of the Grenadiers, which was another political group in France. The Committee of Public Safety was created in April of 1793, and Maximilien was chosen to be their leader. This had started a spark that would turn him from a courageous leader into a vicious, heartless dictator. On September 5, 1793, Maximilien Robespierre instated the Reign of Terror to vow to kill the enemies of the nation. Being the cruel leader that he would turn out to be, he would be responsible for the death of over 40,000 French citizens. He was the main person wanting the king to be guillotined, while other leaders just wanted a constitutional monarchy. Robespierre wanted the revolution to take place, and he took the radical outrage way too far, causing thousands of innocent lives to be ended with only a 10-month period. Many accounts of French citizens state that there were over 600 executions in Paris alone each month, and the streets were literally paved with blood. Within the next few weeks, the Law of Suspects was passed on September 17, 1793, which officially started the executions of the enemies of the nation. This law was pushed by the Committee of Public Safety, which stated, "Those who, by their conduct, associations, comments, or writings, have shown themselves as partisans of tyranny or federalism and enemies of liberty are to be guillotined by the Revolutionary Tribunal." So as Robespierre wanted before, the enemies of the nation were to be punished. These reasons were foolishly thought of by no other than Maximilien himself. If you were simply discussing politics or talking about another country, you were to be arrested, according to the Law of Suspects. The Reign of Terror brought much question to France. Whether or not to have the Queen to be guillotined was one of those questions. On October 14, 1793, Marie Antoinette stood before the Revolutionary Tribunal to await her punishment. She said only one thing during her trial: "If I don't speak, I appeal to all the mothers in the audience." All she cared about is if her children were safe, and she wanted to be with them. Although her touching stories were convincing to some, the Revolutionary Tribunal on the Committee of Public Safety voted for her death. 2 days later, on October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette stood before the guillotine. Once she went up to the scaffold, the blade went down. The life of one of the most prestigious queens of Europe was ended, due to the acts of Maximilien himself. Robespierre was all about how much power he could have, and he was prepared to execute anyone that was in his way. The Girondins were a political party in the Legislative Assembly that supported the fall of the monarchy, but resisted the momentum of the revolution. By doing this, they were sentenced to be guillotined on October 31st, 1793, due to Maximilien's support of the Reign of Terror. Other groups involved were the Mountain, which was a political faction inside of the Jacobin Club, which is ironically supported once by Robespierre. The government was afraid that women would form a counter-revolution, so they suppressed the women's clubs on October 30th, 1793. Many officers of the committee held claims such as, "Are women capable of such demanding attention and qualities?" We can answer in a general no. The Festival of Reason was a time in which people lost faith in the Christian Church due to the strong criticism from Maximilien Robespierre. This event took place on November 10, 1793, and was supervised by Hermit and Marmoro. Churches across France were turned into temples of reason. The Christian altar was dismantled and altars to liberty were installed to support the revolution. The goddess of reason was portrayed by Sophia Marmoro to represent wisdom. During this time, Robespierre once again separated himself from the radical faction.
Revolts broke out west of France by the Vendée and other areas of Brittany after the king's execution. The revolts were led by royalists and people who supported the end of the revolution. Of course, though, Robespierre would not allow these revolts to happen, and he sent in troops. On December 5, 1793, the revolts in Vendée was repressed. Although many French people were fooled by Robespierre at first, not everybody agreed with him. A brave publisher, Camille Desmoulins, wrote the issue of Le Veau Cordelier. The first issue was published on December 5, 1973. Desmoulins expressed that he favored Danton's ideas and wanted peace and to end the terror. Later on, more people would realize that Robespierre was actually a ruthless tyrant. On February 26, 1794, the laws of Ventose were passed. They were a radical act that authorized the seizure and redistribution of property that belonged to those suspected of working against the Republic. However, the law was never enforced, but this shows Robespierre's drive to exterminate anyone who would go against his government.
On June 10, 1794, the laws of 22 Priero was passed by the Committee of Public Safety. These laws allowed the Revolutionary Tribunal to execute more people with a fair trial. It stated that every citizen is empowered to seize conspirators and counter-revolutionaries and bring them before the magistrates. Over two-thirds of all executions done by the Revolutionary Tribunal were done after this point in history with the support of Robespierre. Many French citizens realized Maximillian Robespierre had gone too far in his political power and needed to be stopped. So on July 27, 1794, the people surrounded the meeting hall of the Committee of Public Safety with cannons in large groups. They stormed the meeting hall and took members of the committee as prisoners of war, and they were executed the same day. The reign of terror and the reign of Robespierre was ended, with the people chanting, "Long live liberty! Long live liberty!"
The terror took the lives of between 18,500 to 40,000 people. About 8% were aristocrats, 6% were clergy, 14% were middle class, and 70% were workers or peasants accused of hoarding, evading the draft, desertion, rebellion, and other crimes. Some of the most famous people that were guillotined during the Reign of Terror included the King and Queen of France, Hebertists, and one of his dear friends, Horace Dalton. None of these deaths made Robespierre show any signs of guilt or remorse. As he put it, pity is treason.